Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar featuring SnapAI, the next evolution in 2D takeoff. Our presenter today is Ken Kuipers from Accord & Company. A few notes before we get started. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. If you have questions, please type them into the questions box and we will address them at the end of the session. For the best visual experience, please maximize your screen. This webinar will be recorded and the link will be emailed out to everyone later on today. I will now turn it over to you, Ken.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Ken Kuipers here. We'll run through a couple quick things on the beginning. As Krista just mentioned, we've got everybody muted so it sounds better. And if you want to maximize your screen, just make everything look better. We're trying to work with a lot of real estate here. Quick agenda, why eTakeoff? I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'm going to get into the demonstration of eTakeoff, a little bit of an application overview. The SnapAI is going to be what the focus of this webinar is, but we also want to touch a little bit on the integration between, in particular, the Sage estimating application. So why eTakeoff? Well, first of all, eTakeoff is one of the few applications out there that actually works with a native PDF format. Many of the other applications have to convert the PDFs into a TIFF file. In some cases, that can take quite a bit of time, as much as 15-20 minutes. If you do 1 or 2 a week, it's not a big deal, but if you're doing projects every day, that can take up a lot of time. eTakeoff is also one of the only ones out there that allows multiple estimators to be working on the same project, even the same drawing page at the same time. eTakeoff does have a bidirectional integration with Sage Estimating. So what that means is that we can do our digital takeoff. The quantities can then be passed over to Sage Estimating, where it will populate the estimate spreadsheet with the proper items and the proper quantities. And there's actually a drill down feature in Sage Estimating that will take us back to eTakeoff to show us where those dimensions came from. That's the bidirectional part of that. Another of the features that eTakeoff has that many others do not is the multiple scales per page. You'll find this more frequently on your details page, where you have one set scale for a drawing on a portion of the page. Another portion of the page may have a different scale. eTakeoff will allow you to define different scales on that one page. Other applications kind of force you to copy that page, so you end up getting page after page after page. The other thing we want to show you here is the Smart Assembly Takeoff, and what that really does, it kind of mimics what Sage Estimating does with their assemblies and their variables. It allows you to assign attributes to the items that you're trying to capture the dimension from on the drawing. You'll see how that works as we go through here. It has an advanced pattern search. Yes, some of the other applications do have pattern search. This, in my opinion, is probably one of the best pattern searches out there. It's not perfect. You take a look at these drawings and the graphics, sometimes graphics get overlapped. It makes it very hard for pattern search to work properly, but it can be a good way to speed your productivity. eTakeoff also allows you to assign locations, WBS codes, and alternates while you're looking at the drawing. All that information would get passed directly over to Sage Estimating. Another feature that eTakeoff has is the ability to have unlimited open drawing windows, which means you can have your main drawing page on the screen and open up the detail page right on top of that to take a look at the details that you may be interested in on the drawing itself. It does have the hyperlinks and the jumping back and forth like a lot of the other applications have, but the ability to have these multiple open windows, and today with everybody with the multiple screens, that's a big advantage. Another benefit here is what we call global variables. So you have the ability for a given project to change variables globally. A good instance here is, let's say that we had done some concrete takeoff that was the 3000 PSI, and all of a sudden there's a spec change and they want all that changed to 3500. There's one spot where we can go into eTakeoff, simply make that modification. It changes that attribute for all the items that were originally using the 3000, and that integration also sends it over to Sage and updates those items in Sage. And that's part of the change management as well, is when we change an item like that, only those parameters or those items that have new attributes are the ones that get modified over in Sage Estimating. The SnapAI is really a pretty big deal. It's a patented technology that eTakeoff has developed, and SnapAI actually looks into the PDF file and looks for vector data. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Most of these applications that load drawings and convert them to TIFF, there's no data associated with it. It's simply ink on a paper, and the applications cannot read that type of information. SnapAI can read the hidden attributes or the hidden line information in a PDF file. Most of your CAD applications today, when they create a PDF file, have this vector information embedded into it. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward here. The other big advantage is the increased productivity and accuracy. People that have been using this SnapAI and get used to it are claiming that they can get 50% improvement, or Takeoff takes 50% less time than it did before. And I'll try to illustrate that to you as we get into the demonstration. And we also have eTakeoff with the bridge. The bridge is the component that communicates between eTakeoff and Sage Estimating. So not only does it work with the 2D eTakeoff information, it can also read 3D information from a BIM model. So talk a little bit more here about the vector versus the raster. So the raster is this ink on paper. If you scan a PDF drawing or scan any type of a drawing, it becomes a raster file. There's no usable data embedded in that file. The raster drawings just don't scale very well, and obviously SnapAI can't read anything in that file because there's nothing there to read. The vector PDF is constructed using mathematical formulas, uses lines and segments to define all the geometry on the page. Most of the PDFs, as I mentioned, created from CAD are vector based, and Snap is going to work with those types of files. Now, there's some caveats to that, and I'll point that out as we go through here. So with that, let me switch over to my other screen here, and we'll kind of start taking a look at this. I think we want this one. That should bring up my screen here with eTakeoff displayed on it. And what I want to do is talk a little bit about the workflow that Sage and eTakeoff has defined for their solution. I know that a lot of digital takeoff users out there are used to having their drawing open on one page and possibly their Excel spreadsheet or their Sage Estimating or any other estimating application open on their second screen. They do a little bit of takeoff, and then they'll go enter the data in the estimating application. The way that Sage has designed this is they want you to focus on, let's go get the takeoff done. Let's quantify everything that needs to be done on the project. And with the bridge, we can hit one button and send all that data over to Sage Estimating at one time. We can come back, we can review it, we can make changes, but the idea here is let's focus on getting the takeoff completed, and then let's go take a look at what we've built over in estimating, whether you're integrating with an Excel sheet or Sage Estimating. You'll go in and that's where you're going to do your finalization of your project. Real quick overview here of the eTakeoff. It's a little bit different layout. The concepts are pretty much the same with all these applications. I've got my drawing list is in the lower left-hand corner here. These control panels, by the way, can be moved. They can be undocked. They can be shifted on multiple screens. A lot of flexibility here. Upper left, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. This is what we call our trace list. Now, I happen to have several databases on my system. The program will actually ship with this whole collection of templates. So you could start from day one by counting items, tracing items on your screen, and starting to build a measurement list without having to do a lot of work. There's a tool that's built in that comes along with eTakeoff and Bridge that actually allows you, if you have a current Sage estimating database, you can build this trace list to match exactly what you have over in your Sage estimating with your assemblies. And you'll see that as I start working with the application here. I mentioned real quick, let me go up here. If I can open up an extra drawing window. I go here and let's say I want to look at a second floor plan. So at this point, I actually have two windows open at the same time. I've got the first floor plan in the background. I've got the second window with the second floor plan, and I could go ahead and open up more windows if I wanted to do so. Let me go to, if I go to the cover sheet here, I'm double clicking the cover sheet in the bottom, and let me zoom in on this. I want to illustrate here what a raster drawing looks like. You see how the text on this is pixelated? That's what you get with a raster file or a TIFF file. When I go to the first floor plan, let me do the same thing here. When I scroll in on this, you can see that these lines are very clean, very clear. That's because those are vector lines. Now, what I want to do here is I want to kind of start on, I'm going to jump down here to my foundation plan. And I'll show you a little bit how this works. Now, if up on the toolbar here, by the way, this is a kind of a classic Microsoft Ribbon type deal. You have different features on different ribbon selections as we move across the top here: settings, plan room, work zones, all that type of thing. The home is where you can be working most of the time. This is where most of your work gets taken place. The SnapAI feature is right here on the toolbar. Now, when I turn this on, you're going to see right away that it recognizes that I'm looking at a vector drawing. Let me flick back here to this cover sheet, and you'll see that that is now grayed out. So eTakeoff identifies drawings that have that vector data and the ones that do not. Let me go back here to my foundation plan again. And when we talk about SnapAI, we can snap to points, we can snap to lines, or we can do polyline. All right, so the way that this works, let me just grab the point here. Let me zoom in on my foundation here. And I'm going to start off with a continuous footing. Now, when I do that, right off the bat, if you notice to the right-hand side, these are those attributes I was talking about. These are going to mimic what you have over in your Sage estimating application as variables. We'll need to complete those before I can save this trace. All of this information gets sent directly over to Sage exactly as you see it here. But what I want to do is, let me come back to my drawing here. And if I want to do a point, let me double click on this. And come on, work with me here. We should be able to pick up here on, there we go. Escape. All right, here, so what I want to show you, if I go to the point mode here, you can see how my cursor might be a little bit hard to see here, but right now it has kind of a dotted circle around it. When I move close to a point, it snaps to that point and the circle becomes a solid filled line. That's an indication that it has located a physical point on this drawing, and they're going to be all over the place. When I'm not even close to a point on the drawing, the indicator around the cursor becomes that dotted line again. Now, the same thing if I go to snap to a line, I'm going to get the same type of thing here, but when it finds a line, you'll note how there's an arrow in the middle of that line. When I position my cursor to the left, it's as if I was taking it off to the left, or I can be taking it off to the right. So as you can see, to take off a single line, I would just need to do a single click here. I don't have to click on both of those points. And where it really gets interesting is when we start talking about polylines. Now, not all your drawings are going to have polylines. This isn't going to work 100% of the time. It depends so much on how the drawing was actually designed by the architect. Many times there's overlapping lines. SnapAI sees that and sometimes has a hard time recognizing what to do. But if you get the right polyline, I want to do a continuous footing here. If I hit just the right spot here on this, you can see right there, it just traced the entire outline foundation. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see all the way around here, it followed that polyline. Now to the right, bring this back in here so we can see it a little bit better. It wants to know what that foundation width is in inches. So when I put 48 in here, this particular trace is designed to be scaled as per the width. And you'll note that 48-inch footing, continuous footing, now shows that width on the drawing. And I'm also going to want to plug in here a 12-inch depth. All right, so I've just defined the attributes of that foundation, and I have other attributes I can modify if I want here. Again, this ties directly into our Sage assemblies. The same type of options that I have over in Sage are going to be replicated here. Direct shoot, users, keyways, all those types of information are going to be displayed here on the right-hand side in this quantity list. So let's move on here. I'm going to jump over to a different drawing. So I've got the foundation in here. I'm kind of working from the ground up on this. I'm going to go back to my first floor drawing. So again, what we do is we lower left-hand corner, and these are, you can position these wherever you want to, by the way. Double click on my first floor plan. And now what I want to do is I want to get this exterior wall on my building. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. Now this is not a real clean line, as you can see, that goes around the outside. So it's going to take me a little bit of a few steps to get around here, but I'm going to show you how we can toggle back and forth between these different SnapAI features to make it go even quicker. And I think you're going to see that even with that, it's still going to be faster than if you were to do a point and click without SnapAI trying to get on each of the corners. So let me zoom out here a little bit. I'm going to go over to my left-hand side here, and I'm going to go to my exterior walls. And again, this is one of the databases that we have. And I'm going to grab, this happens to be you see an exterior wall, interior skin, drywall, and metal furring, which is exactly what I want here for this La Quinta hotel drawing that I'm working on. Let me give myself a little bit more room. And holding two mouse buttons, by the way, allows you to pan around the screen. Your scroll wheel scrolls in and out, a very quick and easy way to move around. So let me see what I can do about capturing this exterior wall on this building. Kind of get this centered here. And if I double click on my exterior wall, and I'm going to go up to, as I clicked right there, you can see that it picked up a polyline all the way back to the left end side of that building. Now, if I go on here, it's going to struggle a little bit trying to match up the rest of that polyline, which tells me that this really wasn't drawn as a continuous line around there, but that's okay. So I'm going to click on that. We're going to accept that one. Now I can continue here. Let me zoom in a little bit, and I can do little line segments. Now you see it's picking up some odds and ends here. Real quickly, if you run into that, just hold your space bar. That takes me back to the point mode, and I can just grab these points and it snaps right to those points. Go over here, I can pick up that next line. And let me work around here. I'm going to use a combination here of point modes by holding the space bar. Where I can find a line, I'm going to use the line. And I know that this is kind of convoluted here. So we're just going to grab these points, move it up a little bit, get to this, grab this point down here. Now I can grab this point over here. And again, I'm working around points. The advantage here is even all I need to do is get close to that point. And if I zoom in, you're going to see that I'm dead on, which is something you can't do without having the SnapAI. Let me move on around here. I'm going to grab a couple more points. Again, I'm just holding the space bar down. If you'll note up at the top, it keeps toggling back between this point mode and the poly mode. And if I try to get a poly and it doesn't work, I just hit the space bar. Go back here, grab a couple more. I think at one point here, I'm going to be able to finish this off. There's a line segment. There's a line segment. There's picking up two of them. And let me move this down here, and we'll just go back here to the end. All right, so that finishes my exterior wall. Now, once again, I'm going to take a look at the attributes that are assigned to this particular wall. It's a 10-foot wall. We've got the furrings, thickness, spacing, the wallboard we're going to use. It's what wallboard rating we have here. Again, the drop downs, these are all defined by the Sage Estimating database. You can define these on their own. If you're not using Sage Estimating, you're using Excel. All of these, eTakeoff refers to these as extensions on top of that particular trace. The extensions can be mapped directly to the Sage Estimating assemblies, or you can set them up on your own to capture the attributes as you choose. Let's move on to another section here, and I'm going to jump down this time to my roof drawing, if I can find it here. Roof plan. Let me zoom out a little bit. By the way, too, if you have the scaling is pretty typical. You can define a custom scale by clicking on 2 points. If you try to do a takeoff on a drawing that has not been scaled, it'll stop you, tell you, look, you've got to scale that. But here again, I can see that this is a vector drawing. My SnapAI is all ready to go to work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab another trace that's set up for the roofing. And I have those down here in my B310, and we're going to use a metal shingle roof here. Now, once again, the snap isn't 100% perfect, but we're going to use it to the best that we can. Do a double click here. And if I go over here to, let's see what's here. Grab this one and grab that one. You can see it traced out the rest of that roof. I'm going to hit enter here real quick, and I'm going to add a couple of more points to take out for these gables. So I can add points here. Again, now I can even use my, back up here. So I'm adding some points here to back out for those gables from this main roof. We'll get this last one over here. Enter. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take, and since this is a fairly symmetrical roof, I'm going to take this area that I just took off. We're going to utilize a feature called Project Favorites. So what I can do is I can take this entire roof, pull it over here to my Project Favorites, then simply drag and drop it down to the other side. I may have to do a little bit of adjustment here. Let me see if I can get this close. going to drop it there. I'm going to flip it vertically, and then I'm going to use my move point to reposition it exactly where I want it. So that quickly, I just replicated both sides of that roof. Now I could use that same process for the gables here with the different pitches. And by the way, I want to make sure that I set my pitch properly here. This is a 5, and I want to use a colored shingle here. Hit enter to save that. I got to go back and change this first one. Had I set this first one with these same parameters, when I copied it to the other side of the roof, those parameters would have come along with it. Okay, so we got a foundation, we got an exterior wall, we have a roof taken care of here, and let's go in and just do one more thing here. Let's take a look at a pattern search. Sage really does a pretty good job with this. So I'm going to go to I have a lighting drawing here. I think it's where to get to. This one, here we go. So let me zoom in on this, and as I can see in the drawing, if I can find it here. Maybe it was this one. All right, so this drawing I need to rotate. .270, zoom in. That's not the one I'm looking for either. Let's go back here. I'm looking for some lighting symbols on here. All right, we're gonna try, there's what I was looking for, these ends. So to do the pattern search, what you do is we're gonna start our search, and we have to define what graphic is it that we want the application to search for. So I'm gonna zoom in here. I wanna be pretty precise with this, right around that symbol. And what I want to do is I don't want to do roofing here. I want to go down and choose the lighting fixture that was on here a second ago, which was down here under services, electrical, lighting. These are 1x4 fluorescents. Okay, and with that, I simply tell the program to go. It's going to search this entire drawing and looking for every place that it can find a matching symbol. And that's being done down here in the lower right-hand side. Now, you could actually go ahead and continue doing takeoff and allow this to continue in the background. Let's see what we've come up with here. And so here is all of those matching symbols that it found. I don't want that one, and I'm just going to do a save and continue. And save. If I scroll out, you can see it found every place on that drawing where that light fixture is. Okay, now at this point, what we can do is we've worked through some of the workflow. We've stayed in eTakeoff. We're quantifying our project. I can double click over here at any point in time. And this is my measurement list. Now I know a lot of estimators will use this list and they'll go through here and just pull these numbers off of here and type them into whatever estimating application they're working on. We can absolutely do that. But with Sage, we have the option to automatically integrate this with an estimate, Sage estimate. So let me minimize this and go a little bit further here. Let's go in. I'm going to launch a bridge. Now the bridge is the piece that communicates back and forth between eTakeoff and Sage Estimating, and also communicates with 3D BIM models. So I'm going to create a new bridge here for today. And I'll just call this our Snap webinar. And I'll put a date on there. And I'm actually going to create a new estimate right from this bridge as well. And this is going to be my Snap webinar 0826 estimate. I can choose the database. Now, most people only have a single database. I have several that I demonstrate here. So we have this one set up. Go ahead and say OK. And I am running the the new version Sage 2.21.1, which is their new 64-bit application. Let me click OK. And this launches the bridge. Now, when I go here and click on automatic, this just went out to the drawing and it found all of those items that I just got done taking off. It recognizes those. It knows where they're matched up with Sage. I click go. I say OK. And let me close the bridge. Now, one of the caveats here is we can't have the bridge open and the Sage estimating at the same time. So let me close this. Let me go back here. Here's the estimate that I just built by doing Takeoff using eTakeoff. Let me scroll back here. If I go by assemblies, you can see there's every one of those assemblies that I took off. All the measurements are there. There's my lighting, everything that I need. This drill down, this blue tick, if I do a right click and I select drill down to eTakeoff bridge, it'll take me back to eTakeoff. Give me a second here. And actually highlights exactly where that information came from. And I can see here, here's what we took off, and here's the actual takeoff, and all of the variables are matched up. You can see the color coding between the different areas in here. Krista, how much time do we have allotted for this today?
You're good. We have time. We allotted an hour, but.
Oh, okay, good enough. All right, so what we can do here is we can make some modifications. So let's go back. Let me show you how this the change management works on this. So if I go into my concrete here, for example, and this is highlighted, I'm going to simply say we got a spec change. They want to put 3,500 PSI in there. I hit enter, and that's all that's required. Now, if I go back to my bridge, and I'm going to do a review here. Let me do a refresh. You can see this little pencil icon here in front of the continuous footing. If I open it up and I double click on that, what we should see here is, if I can find it, there it is. Let me go with this. Right there is the change we just made. We modified that strength to 3,500. It was originally 3,000. I'm going to say, yep, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to send that back over to the estimate again. So let me close this, go back to the estimate one more time, and get this out of the way. If I take a look now at this assembly, I'm going to do a right click and review the assembly. Those who have used Sage Estimating are familiar with this. And look what we have here. So this was my original pass where I had the concrete strength at 3,000, right? Well, when I made that change in eTakeoff and I sent that over to Sage, it does the classic, it backs out the 3,000, and the pass audit shows that it's now been replaced with a 3,500. So that works exactly as you would expect it to work when you're working in Sage Estimating. It has the the past audit trail is there, so you can go back and monitor that whenever you choose. You can also, let me jump back here to, I'm going to close this again and jump back into the eTakeoff, because I want to also point out that up at the top here, we also have the ability to work with all of the WBS codes that are built into your estimating database. I can assign things to alternates. I can assign things to a base, set up a whole schema of alternates if I choose to do so. We can go down here. Again, these are just a collection of the bid items that I happen to have in this one database. So you can assign things to alternates and or base items or any other WBS value you want. You can then use those values to sort the estimate over in Sage Estimating. Now, take a moment here just to see if there's any questions at this point. You can put the questions in the comment section to see if anybody has anything at this point.
We have no questions so far.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can take a look at a couple other things here within eTakeoff. As I mentioned, that we've got these control panels. Now these can be undocked and moved around. There's different panels of information. If I do a control panel 1 here, you can see I can have what we call a bird's eye view. I know that some users are used to seeing something like that. And that gives you this one where as I move around in the bird's eye view, I'm moving around on the drawing as well. We can, as I zoom in and out here, I'm getting a zoom in and out here on the bird's eye drawing. And I can just close that off. The other options you have here, traces, your favorite layers, of course, eTakeoff works with layers, filtering, measurement summaries. There's just a ton of applications that we can work with here. If I go through the menu, the home menu, this is where we have the basic lengths, typical stuff where you have 2 points, you have a rectangle trace. The SnapAI feature kind of replaces some of that. The basic rectangle 2-point works well, but you're going to find in many cases that the SnapAI, if there's a polyline there, is going to work even better for you. Let me go down here. I want to just illustrate as well. Let me go back to my roof plan here. If you don't have Sage Estimating, you can still use the application from day 1. And let me bring this up here again. Scroll out. Let me go in here. And I'm down in the templates. We have several really nice templates are already built into here. If I go into framing, here's a joist with lengths. So let's just take a look at something here. If I'm building this and I need to put some, I've got trusses in from the main building, but I'm going to hand frame this hip roof. So if I double click on this, and I'm going to use my line segment this time, and I'm going to grab this and that, hit enter. What you can see is it just laid out the stud structure for that hip roof on the right-hand side. Let me expand this a little bit. Scroll down. It actually counted how many studs of each length are required to frame out that gable end. And I can change if I change the pitch, which I didn't do, that pitch is what, 6? So that's obviously is going to change my counts of different lengths of the joist. So here again, even if you're simply doing an integration with Excel, you now have what you need to frame out that particular hip on this roof with all your joist lengths. Okay. Let's see, what else can we take a look at here? Let's go back to, let's show you another one here. Let's go back to our first floor plan. And let me move this around. Let's take a look at this area here. Now, with eTakeoff, it does the area and backouts a little bit different than some of the other applications do. Let me go up here to the top, and let's take a look at interior. Finish some flooring. And let's say that I wanted to put a ceramic tile around this pool area. So I do a double click here. And as I move in, you can see that it's going to start to kind of pick up on some of these polylines. They're not perfect in this area. Now, the key to working with areas in eTakeoff is if you want to capture an area, you trace it in a clockwise mode. So what I'm going to do is let me zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to use my space bar just so I can start picking up some points because this is kind of convoluted here. And if I can, yeah, it's just going to grab my points. And here again, now this part of it is pretty typical, but the difference is I am snapping to that very precise point on the drawing. So there's no guesswork there. Now, once I have the area in, as I do now, you can see over on the right-hand side, I've got a total area. If I want to do a back out here, the routine for this is we use what's known as a disconnected point. Now, you note when I hover up on the ribbon bar here, each of these icons have a very good description of what that icon does, and many of them have keystroke alternatives or keystroke shortcuts. If you start to get familiar with those, you can save yourself quite a bit of time. So in this case, what we refer to as a disconnected point is a G. So I'm going to hit my G key, and I want to back out, if I can find it here. It's not picking it up. Oh, I know what it was. Hold on. Let me get out of there. I wanted to get my polyline. All right, let me grab that again. Enter. Now I want to back that out, so I'm going to grab my G key. This time on my polyline, I want to back out this, and I simply do a single click, and it recognized that polyline and backed out this entire internal portion where I don't want to put my ceramic tile. And let's say for argument's sake here that on this little rim, we want to add in here some quarry tile. So let me double click here. And once again, I'm going to use my polyline. I'm going to select that whole area and then back out the main area. And that leaves me now simply with a rim of the quarry tile around the perimeter of the pool. If you can get drawings that are using the proper vector PDFs, this is going to save you a ton of time. And I just noticed down here I missed, let me fix that in a minute. So I'm going to go to edit points very quick, and I just take and bring this point down to where it belongs. Okay. Now I can also do one other thing here. If I wanted to finish off the bottom of that pool, I can go up here to my substructures, slab on grade, and let's just put a concrete slab in there. And now once again, I'll use my polyline. I'll just grab this point right here, done. All right, so all of that is, and now that I've added some stuff to the drawing, let's go back, let's send this over to the estimate again and see how it updates on the fly. So I'm going to bring my bridge up one more time. And this was this guy here. It picked up the new ceramic tile, the quarry tile, and that standard grade. So all I need to do is just send it over, say okay. Okay, again, And let's go take a look at the estimate, see what we have. Go to the assemblies. And sure enough, here's my ceramic tile quarry, my light fixtures, all that stuff has been updated in the estimate file. So once again, if I wanted to, I could go back and simply by changing parameter here, let's say that they decided maybe they wanted to go with a marble perimeter on here. So with this, let me highlight this trim edge again that I had before. And I simply do a right click over here. I can assign that now to a marble, and it has now changed, and I have the attributes associated with marble are now displayed. Once again, we can go back to our bridge. We're going to open up our bridge again. Try that again. Oh, I know it is. I've got my estimate open, my fault. It's one of the things that'll take a little getting used to here initially is the fact that you cannot have the Sage estimate open at the same time you're working with the bridge. Hopefully at some point in time, Sage has talked about having multi-users in the estimate at the same time. Once they bring that online, this bridge conflict won't be an issue anymore. So at this point, I just want to do a review again. I want to see what might have been changed. And I saw everything that's been sent over, and sure enough, here is that marble modification I made. Double click on it. I want to do a quick change, and we say OK, and send it over. Go back to our estimate one more time. Get this out of the way. If I go down to my assembly here, you should be able to see what do we have? That's my ceramic. All right, I must have missed that setup. Take another pause here for a moment. We're kind of come down to the end of the hour. Do we have any other further questions at this point? Again, the idea here is what SnapAI is allowing you to do in the digital takeoff application is cut your time way down by utilizing the Snap functionality. And if you can cut your time down doing the takeoff, that's just that many more projects you can do. I don't know how many people on the line here are currently using Sage, or if they're using Excel. Excel, we can create integration into Excel templates with the eTakeoff. That's not a problem. You don't get all of the attribute functionality, but certainly with Sage estimating, we do. So once again, let me see if I can open this up to questions and see if anything pops up here, Krista.
Okay, there are no questions yet.
Okay, well, if that's it, we again wanted to focus primarily on the SnapAI functionality today, and I think that I've covered that pretty well. We delved into a little bit further into the integration side of it, but if there's no further questions on SnapAI, I guess we'll close up the webinar for today. There's tons of information on not only our website at accordantco.com, but of course, there's tons of videos and other information out there on the application. With that, Krista, I guess we'll sign off for the day.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending. Please look out for the recording from me and you'll be able to reply to the email with any other questions. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.